For the schmeckles.
You're not being recorded, just FYI.
That's not a bad. Not before your parents, schmeckles.
Hello.
Oh, shit. Shout is working. It's getting the stain out. Get out. Get out. Come it all out.
Yay.
Turn the volume down.
Yay. It was perfect timing too, because Aaron has been creatively expressing himself as this call started. So I was like, just so you know, you are being recorded. This whole thing. So he missed out on his commercial.
It's commercial.
Commercial for Shout. Good morning, good day, happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. Yeah, I'm now celebrating Mondays. Yep.
You are now celebrating Mondays?
Well, I decided it this morning. Like, I have been dragging and not looking forward to the kids going back to school and me waking up early and having to make things. So I just decided, like, I'm going to start celebrating Mondays. I'm going to celebrate Mondays. I'm going to celebrate mornings, like.
That's awesome.
Because I've been resisting it,
Okay.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I had this concept too of having a party that just celebrates that everybody's like experiencing some shit, in their life. And I like that idea. Like, I'm going to celebrate you're having a hard time, like I'm going to celebrate that everybody's having a hard time. Like, we're having a hard time celebrating party. I didn't go through with all of that, but like, I still like that concept.
Yeah.
And I think we should do it. I think we should lean into it.
I would agree. There's a concept when Aaron has been navigating what he's navigating. I'm like, if you're gonna be depressed, I want to make sure it's the best depression ever. Like that energy. I'm just gonna make it the best because it is this surrender into. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can change. We're having to simply be with what's here as powerfully as we can be. And celebration, I think, is possibly one of my sun or earths on one side. A big part of my chart, and much of what has been for me this energy that I'm like trying to celebrate that we're here. Yes, it's shit. And also we have a context that says that we're here, we made it, we have support, and we are on the quote unquote right side of history is how it shows up for me. And so I'd rather be on this team celebrating. And Joey said something last night too that is a Sadhguru quote that was like, if people are starving and you have food, like celebrate that at least you're one person that isn't starving. And that was something that was like being able to find the mechanics to where we can celebrate when it feels wrong, when other people are suffering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I lean into more in that is just celebrating the awareness that we know that there's something wrong and that we have the ability to change it, like, because without awareness, like, then we don't think anything's wrong. Yeah, we just
I think that we have the ability to change.
Yeah.
I would say that is the crux that I experienced, that like, how do we create objective, extrinsic proof that makes that count onable? Because I think that's where it's struggling to be translated for certain people, of believing that that's possible kind of thing.
Oh, believing that change is possible?
The hope that that actually could be different and it could end.
Well, I think a lot of times people disempower themselves, and people, like, as soon as you grow up in this society, you're taught to give your power away, pretty immediately. You're taught, like, you're powerful, but the subconscious is like that actually you can't change anything. And that's why, like, people don't vote, even if, like, might as well just vote, and see if anything happens, like, seeing possibility, like, they already think they're like locked into this life that they can't get out of, so they're giving their power away automatically to, the powers that be and things like that. And like, I definitely go like back and forth between that too, and feeling devastated and then feeling really happy and alive, and that change is possible. I definitely do have a little bit of a what is it, like a it's all going to work out kind of concept going on. but yeah, a lot of people feel so locked in, and then they lock themselves in, you know, so they do it to themselves too, you know.
Well,
And you have to
language,
be
I would,
creative, and a lot of people aren't taught to be creative, you know,
yeah.
in their thinking. We're taught to have very structured thinking, which structure doesn't necessarily allow for the free flow that is creativity.
I agree. I will say language is, I'm pretty literal in language. So the concept of, and just how words are spells, people disempower themselves. For me, how I experience it is it's it is like this constant trap that you didn't put there. Like it is this like you're born in this body that's programmed into some sort of maze path, and certain people have a closed loop path that it's like they didn't put themselves in that path. They didn't put themselves in this trap. They are quote unquote putting themselves in that trap once they're aware because they have that distinction. I will say for me personally, in my own self-sabotage on the internet, like there is something in staying in that trap to get to understand it so intimately so I can't get stuck in it again. So there is something for me seeing people who are quote unquote stuck, that it's like you are discovering what you need for yourself to get out because you are done with the trap. Like we all have a trap in a sense. And for me, I've had the hyperverbal creative expression, so it's been easy to go on that reactive side, and repression hasn't really been my side. And how to come together and create the linguistics. And I think that's what I'm out to in the community too, because even in that, like the trap of disempower, like it almost like sucks people into a undertow that they can't get out of if the community says that you're disempowering yourself, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I don't know if that trend.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you started talking about, you know, being in a closed loop system or something like that, it's like, oh, then you're giving your power away to that closed loop system because you're thinking that it's closed loop. And yeah, there's definitely a fine line between like gaslighting yourself,
Mhm.
and, you know, actually just being real with your experience and accepting. I think a lot of times, like, so many of us don't accept the experience that we have. So we literally can't change it because we're resisting what is actually present for us
Mhm.
in the moment. And we want it to change so bad. But like that resistance also creates magnetism. So we're like in this push pull situation that we can't get out of because like we're resisting it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1000%. I feel that
Yeah.
fully, and I feel that's
And you
something.
have to like demagnetize it and
Ooh, that's a big
remagnetize
thing.
yourself to something else,
That's
you know.
amazing.
Yeah, it's uh like when you say like I don't have a lot of money, you're magnetizing I don't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
Like instead of magnetizing like the possibilities, I
Yeah, I
guess.
feel
I
that. And
guess
then
you're
it
still
also,
magnetizing a possibility, but you're magnetizing the possibility that you don't want,
and
you
I
know?
feel that fully. There's something that someone said in a podcast the other day that was like, love being poor and finding a way to feel like in love with being poor. And that energetic has shifted a lot of charge.
Mm,
Because I do see, and especially with, I believe, where we're at and where we're headed, there is a point in time where we are no longer in this mental loop of lack. Like there will be a point in time where we transcend this limitation and it will look different in different ways. And so it's like loving the challenge for how long it lasts and demagnetizing it. That just opened up so much. The closed loop system concept, Gene Key 1, if you're into Gene Keys, talks about entropy and closed loop system. And I battled that same with my brain too, because it's like closed loop system, that's an illusion. And I don't have the language for it yet. And it's also as if like, for me personally, it's seeing the quote unquote illusion is equally real as the quote unquote illusion of the possibility. Like both illusions of an open system and a closed system are still both mental constructs at the same time. So it's
mm,
this ability to see that, yes, and actually by saying there's not a closed system, because that's where I was at too, it creates a weird thing. So I haven't found it like landed on it yet. I just instantly, when I saw a closed loop, I was like, lie,
yeah.
it's not a thing. I'm like, well, if our brain and body creates it as an illusion, it's really not a lie. It is a really true belief that we believe. And it is creating an energetic vortex of death and destruction. Like there is that pulling of energy. So I don't have an answer yet. I'm still in contemplation of it. And there's something there. It's like in the pursuit of truth, we do like almost polarize ourselves away from reaching people who need the message, if that translates.
Well, sometimes we have to do our own discovery work,
Yeah, true.
you know. Um, And what you were sharing reminds me, I watched a video this morning of a gentleman in Gaza, and he, you know, of course, death and destruction there. You can just get down, you know, be so down, you know, with your experience there. And he is creating, like, he was like, how to turn a piece of wood into like an electrical charging station. And he did all this work, used metal cans, you know, as part of the conduit to help create that. And it's just, it reminded me of that when we feel limited, and when we feel like we don't have enough or we don't have a lot, sometimes that's when we can get the most creative, you know, when
When
we
I
have
saw that
less.
too, it's
Yeah.
almost as if prior to that stage, it's actually harms us due to expectation and entitlement. There's like a resistance that's like, I shouldn't feel this way
The
because of
comfort.
XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, the entitlement to comfort, when it's like once you get that stripped away and you don't have the entitlement of luxury, you're like, well, I have no other choice. And there's almost this forced survival, which I think for the ADHD brain is so needed, as it does kick on the wiring, it does kick on the interest, it does get that. So I think for me, there's a chasm for those who are quote unquote ADHD when it comes to healing, that it's like until it's an emergency, my brain doesn't work. And I'm just stuck in this undertow going round and round and round. And so much of what I'm up to is creating language that destigmatizes and demagnetizes. So the person I'm speaking with, they're like, oh, I get it. Like I'm a genius, fucking brilliant person stuck in a closed loop, open loop system. Like that whole thing, like hold two truths. And that's been, and that whole, like, I don't know if it's I don't know where it comes from. Course in Miracles, maybe, like every truth is a half truth, has been really powerful for me too. Like if I can see something as true, there is another side that's quote unquote equally true if I'm anchoring into something and not resisting it. So either way, either the death and destruction, and not like not on our watch and like not in our space. Like I think that's something too in the world of ownership, leadership, human design always comes through my brain. Whatever we create in our space, like loneliness and death and depression are essentially ending your own human suffering is how I see it. Like not in our world. Like we have past resources, so not in quote unquote our ecosystem, whatever we create, and begin to own that and then build that out, or like not in our own individual system is maybe what we say, like death and destruction does not get to rule and reign inside of my system. And how do we actually live that out and show ways to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I I feel that, and I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart for,
Please,
so it's like
challenge
death
it.
needs to
Please.
happen, you know, like
Mhm.
composting needs to happen, like in order to in order to move on with something else, sometimes you need to let other things go, you know, in order to create space,
Mhm.
in order to create in order to create other pathways or yeah, so I feel like death is a part of life, you know,
Mhm.
like yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something there. I don't see it yet, and I will always just thank you for bringing that.
Well, for instance, when you're born, you die to the world inside your mother, and you come into the world and you're born into this world, you know? Like you you're it's like whenever you start a new chapter, your old chapter ends and you start a
Mhm.
new chapter, you know? Um yeah, I mean death is all around us, but it doesn't have to be like stigmatized as
Yeah.
awful, you know? Like it's just part of part of
Well,
life. Sometimes it sucks because you want to hold on to it, and where attachment comes in, then that's when it gets painful. You know, when we're attached to something and it dies, or you don't feel like you're ready for it, or things like that. Yeah.
want to see too, living so that you don't regret dying. Like you actually were present. And I mean, you can even microcosm of every day as a quote unquote death if you want to see it in that way, of living in light of and awareness of, I, at this stage, do not believe my body will live forever. I have a theory that it could. I have a theory that maybe we might find something. I'm going to hold that as a possibility, as I think it would be fun to have full control and not die because of some sort of death or disorder. And redefining death, I really do see in control of our own body and our brain that we can reprogram our experience to death and what death is based on our old closed loop program, where death was one way. That's what you expected. And I
Hmm.
see, and I see even stuff with Melanie and Lear, what she's speaking to, of like, we get to rewrite that the future is not gloom in the sense of I turned 50 and now my life's over, and I turned 40 and now my life's over. Like, we get to show that there is life to be had as long as you live. And we're not promised tomorrow. We don't know the number of our days. And I think,
Mhm.
and I believe most of us truly do see the organic timing of someone dying, that it was orchestrated in a path and pattern that in some ways you just accept and you can't deny. Like, there was a clock, like there is a clock that each of us have, and how do you use up every minute as much and most as we can.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I
there's
think part of it is with acceptance, you know, like of where you're at. That's that way you won't like be regretting
Mhm.
your experience. Like, oh, I didn't do enough, you know, I'm still not doing enough. I'm not where I want to be, you know, like, so you have to continually accept that this is just your experience,
Mhm.
you know, like whether you like it or not, you know, like here you are, you know, like make the best of it or make the fullest of it.
Mm.
And then as far as like living on and stuff like that, like what I tell my eldest son, because he, you know, he doesn't want, you know, like he doesn't want us to die, you know, he doesn't want to die, but like we're all recycled energy, you
Mm.
know? So like when my body dies, you know, like my body is going to go into the ground and it's going to be recycled into water, into plants, into the air, you know, like same with like our different energies. Maybe we don't see them because like we only see so much of a spectrum, but like our energy goes somewhere, you know, like we're all part of it all, you
Mhm.
know, and remembering that, I try to tell them, yeah, like we just change form.
Mhm.
We still live all forever. It just you're obviously you, every one of you are unique anomalies. It took very different things to come together and to experiment, and what is this person going to be like, you know, we'll put all this together and then here you are, you
Mm.
know. And so you won't have that specifically, but pieces of us will be are everywhere, you know, and will be everywhere. We shed skin all the time, you know, we leave pieces of ourselves everywhere, you know, like
There's so much there, and just the richness of that, it taps into the again, the crux of whatever this is that I see. I do want to have as a foundation of what is getting created and quote unquote the game of living every, it's not like living every day like it's your last, is like go out and do extravagant crazy things, like normalizing living. The way I say too is like this is as good as it gets. Like, this is as good as it gets, and it
yeah.
can get better. So how can I, instead of resisting the present moment, resisting where I'm at and being like, because I used to will say if it's not this, it's better. That's kind of the thing that I use to get me here. And where it's now, it's evolved into this is as good as it gets, and being able to actually see the fullness of that. Like, this is as good as it gets, and actually experiencing it to the fullness compared
Hmm.
to needing to get to the next minute, next place, next whatever. Like, there's nowhere else to
Yeah.
get. It's elevating my experience. And now that I got to where I wanted to be, which I do see there is a pursuit that people do authentically want to get into, because there's a miserable experience and they truly do want to get to a place where they have the power and choice. And that's a journey. Like, that doesn't happen. That's neurology and neurochemistry and a path of actually reprogramming your whole system. That doesn't just happen overnight. When you've had no awareness and you default into codependent behavior and you want freedom, like, I don't know, that was 4-year journey for me. I don't know what's realistic for people when it comes to actually deconditioning once you discover.
You're, I don't know. I like want to go into this because I never thought about it before, but you said codependent behavior, and I was like, oh yeah, I'd never even thought like, what are ways that you can be codependent with life? And I never explored that possibility. I've always thought like could like things or people
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or, but that's kind of like a really interesting.
I'm still in the formulation of restructuring it.
Yeah.
I see it as power dynamics where like codependency, narcissism, impact, like it just doesn't work when it comes to universal language. And I'd like to deconstruct it. I just see we're born in this world. We're essentially whatever that energy dynamic is with our
Mm,
caretakers. And then we don't have power, or we're not given the frame to have our own power, and then we go on a journey of getting our power back. Like, that
mm,
is the quote unquote journey, and the quote unquote the hero journey, if anything. And I want to collapse it in a way, and I don't know if I've shared before too, just the concept of going from hero journey to creator journey and getting people in creator mode of like, you are in your full power, and your nervous system has these beliefs that keep this as a quote unquote closed system. Because I will say, especially with PTSD and the illusion of a closed system, like I get that. There's also a very like uncontrollable biochemical reaction that I can't control, that is my nervous system, that will shut me down to where I can't breathe or can't think or can't function. So as much as I cognitively know, there is a real nervous system that cannot, like literally cannot. And that I've just learned to accept that when my system goes into shock and I'm dysfunctional, that it is just simply, there is that programming that I'm continuing to overcome and want to give language to, because I see that as what we're all trapped in. I just get really geeked out on studying it in my own self.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you use the words that I was going to bring up, which is program, you know, like we are a series of programs and patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times like how we get into closed loop systems too,
Yeah.
because we're just following patterns.
Yeah.
That's why daily life can seem monotone after a while, because we have the same patterns and we build patterns on top of patterns on top of patterns. And that's how we like succeed. And sometimes we have to like deconstruct
Yes.
and come
216 is
back and
the
then
pattern.
rewrite the pattern and go a different way. And
Yeah.
that sometimes can be painful, because of course,
Yeah.
like there's information that's lodged in those places that might come come to light, and you see it, and yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to change. It's hard to change patterns
I
sometimes.
saw too newly when you say that, like when you do that, like the people in your life love you as your pattern. They like the pattern version. So when you start taking these patterns off and writing new patterns that give you the power and take it away from them, like that doesn't work for them. And their systems are unaware. So they're going to run.
You mean taking your power that you placed in them off
Yes.
of them, and not necessarily like taking their power.
Yep, that. Yep, yeah. It's like you're actually not reacting in that whatever codependent power differential dynamic.
Right. In that familiar way, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we relate what's familiar with safety, even if it familiar is actually unsafe.
Yep, exactly. And it is shocking to a system. And I think that's the crux that I really got sober to, that I'm still learning language around. It's this, I didn't have awareness until I went through what I went through, and the luxury to, like, there was just certain points of times, like I did not have the luxury of going a different pattern. Like there was a nervous system reaction, and also now understanding myself as PDA autistic, you put me in a power differential dynamic and the reaction I have is so extreme, so loud, it is compulsionary. And that for me is also just the research around pathological demand avoidant autistic has given me a lot of power, because it is very disheartening to be at such a mercy to calibrate the power differential to get my power back. And whatever happened to me fighting to my death around power, like it's a limbic brain PTSD response that I still try to, I mean, I get some buffer from. And much of what I like, quote unquote, fight on the internet is me gaining strength to learn that edge and how to play with that edge and actually have it not control me. And that's much of why I see for me going more successful or having more people, or why I don't go to TikTok, is I just don't have the capacity. Like I can have one smell of the wrong thing and my system will so soar. And so it's being able to learn more tools, more skills, abilities to get that buffer, because it will fucking take off and I'm at the mercy of it. And it's like, fuck, like I just want to be free of this system. And it can be the weather, it could be a smell. I mean, just anything will take my whole system and just shut it down. And then I'm, 3, 10, 12 days of trying to get myself back. And so that's been my experience with extreme PTSD, where I wanted to psychologically understand that, to then for people who aren't at that extreme can still use the benefits of what I use, because I've softened the understanding the experience. So that's much of my self-fulfilling desire is around just our systems of, I keep seeing as PTSD or complex PTSD from that sense of giving power up because you're afraid and not knowing how to stand. And I see that for me, feminine, in this world of masculine, where I don't know. I know there are masculines that for sure experience that. I just know for feminine women, it's so much more easy to be, just give up everything to feel safe.
Yeah, well, I think a lot, men compartmentalize and we receive, like, and we are receiving information all the time. So sifting through and finding the specific thing that actually, or having the awareness to notice the specific thing that turned you, like into this pattern, like, and turn the knob sometimes is really hard. And then this also gives us another opportunity to hold ourselves,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm. It's so
Yeah, hold
good.
ourselves with love
Uh,
and
whatever you
acceptance.
said, whatever you said about the self-love thing with your uh the pizza story that you had or whatever, that has been so powerful for me. I just used that again last night. Could see my own energy like fighting for getting attention. I was like,
Can
oh,
you
put
tell
that
me
to
what that
yourself.
was? I
The
don't
pizza
remember.
story where you're like your inner child was needing thank you.
Oh, yes.
Basically.
Yes.
So I'm gonna
Yep.
call it your pizza story because I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I sometimes
Yeah.
feel really
Yeah.
sensitive to people's relations and how they want to bring things up when it's recorded and privacy there. And so either
Yeah,
way,
so I don't know if anybody, yeah, I don't know if you're sharing this
I don't know
or
yet
anything
either.
like
I
that,
would love
but
to play with it.
just for anybody else, basically like I had a birthday party. We had a birthday party for my eldest son, and like afterwards, like I was really like hoping for a thank you or something like that. But he's still, the 0 to 7 age where he's very very ego. They're very egocentric in that age, and me having that expectation is, a little um, unrealistic. And I realized actually what I needed was a thank you from my inner child. So, and then I did that and I felt fulfilled. I felt like the loop was closed, like I felt satisfied. So that's exactly what I needed. So sometimes when we need things from others, we feel like we need things or we need to hear certain things from others. Sometimes we need to actually hear it from our inner child or our inner masculine or inner feminine or father,
Yeah,
all
I
that.
felt that last night. I just felt whatever was happening, I was seeing myself like putting my energy out. And I was like, oh, you're trying to do this to yourself, Jenna. Like, you need this. Like, give this to yourself. And it gave me a frame to actually do that. And it was very powerful last night. Very simple, very powerful. And that was life changing for me.
Sweet.
And just continue to keep that in memory and remembrance because I forget stuff. Like, I'll do something that works and then it's gone and I completely forget.
I
So
hear
just
you.
that one in, it's like, oh, and again, that closed loop system that keeps us looking and then the open loops that we're trying to look to close. And I don't know, there's something around closed loop that I'm still playing with just language wise, where there's something empowerment. I can't see it yet. Either way, just that disempowered closed loop and the empowered closed loop where you have boundaries and your world works and you're self-empowered, you're self-generated, and like it's not necessarily actually real and physical reality. It's more of psychological, ego limited. How can I use this as like, no, closed loop? I take full responsibility of my entire ecosystem. If you're in my ecosystem, I take responsibility so that everything around me is alive, empowered, and taken care of. And just radical responsibility of that ecosystem. I don't know how to say it though.
Yeah, just my mind kind of went off with the closed loop thing. It's like, wow, if we, I don't know if there's anything that's actually closed loop. So honestly, and I was thinking that if we think that it's a closed loop, like a circle, that's what I think. And then you spin it fast enough, then it starts to vibrate. And then it can spin and then it can go other places and then it can knock into things. So like other things happen. Like, so yeah.
There's no, I mean, outside of the fact that we are, if we are in some sort of closed system, even though they say the universe continues to expand every single day. So that's that whole genius world that I see we're all in this whatever space. It's like our brains are so fucking genius. It's really challenging to make any progress because we're like, and what about this? And what about this? Like it's just that we're so programmed to
Yep.
excellence and perfection and 100% A+ stuff. So, and we want
We
to
were
be
also taught about competition too, so we're always measuring ourselves in different ways, and it's not necessarily the way that actually benefits, different ways of thinking or different people. And it kind of centers the focus more on being better than someone else or being the best rather than like you're constantly like basically going up against yourself, it's a self-discovery, like
Yes. So that's the core language and what I want to create, going to go up against yourself, the whole game thing. I think where I'm conflicted or find the conflict is the frame that I always work in is simple, easy, fun. Like it has to check those boxes. And I do have this angst or part of me that's like, I would love for like my mom to play the game with us. Like whatever we create, I'd love it to be that simple that we could invite people that is that simple and easy an invitation. And maybe there's another, scale of the game where we play it at a different level, different thing. I'd love it to be free, simple, easy, like getting ready for the day or getting ready for who, I don't know, character wise or something about that frame that is light and fun and a concept that I want to develop, and I just can't seem to land in something physical that I could anchor in that like other people want to do. Like I can come up with something that's just feel like sifting sand. It's like creating it with someone else, what they would do that just makes sense out there too. I think there's also disparity and divide between Jenna and my life, and then like what the average human is. Like I don't live the average human life, so I don't know how to relate at times of like, even for where you're at, of like with kids, like what is realistic for you in your space time, like in the sense of what would feel good and have celebration energy is super important to me, leveraging limitation, that whole empowerment, staying empowered. And really the game is really a staying empowered game. And being able to, the how you do anything is how you do everything. When you quote unquote fall off, you can't ever lose the game or get the game wrong in a sense. Like it's almost like when you're not showing up, you're actually getting more power. Like there's this weird dynamic that I want to create. It's like if you don't show up, this is actually the most powerful place you can be. And I'll say this to my community too, of like, I want you to not be on the internet. So if you're not on the internet, don't feel bad that you're not hanging out with me. Like I want you out living. Like just come back, like field report. What have you been up to? Like what's real, and not come from, oh, I feel bad. I've been missing. I'm sorry. But like, no, there's never sorry. You're doing what your life is calling forth. You're not on the internet. This is a whole new thing. We don't need you on the internet. Like this is okay if you're not on the internet. So how do you create that and really see that breaking of the quote unquote fourth wall is how it shows up too, of how to normalize existing and the internet and the social constructs and that whole thing. Because it shows up. It's the constant, sorry, I didn't message you back. And I'm always like, no, you were living your life. I don't need to resist you. And like, I get that you wanted to message me. I'd rather you live your life than worry about the internet though. So that's
I mean, I definitely see, video games pops up in me, and just how you choose your own, we were talking about choosing your own character in the morning. Like, so how do you want to show up, like, so you figure out what character you want to show up, like, and clothes, and how you want to meet. One thing that I was connecting with a little bit is like, so all of our video games, I'm not super in on video games these days, but from my experience, they're all very individual. You win, but it's not teamwork or group effort. And I would like to bring in more like, okay, how can we, bring in group, the we all win together kind of thing, instead of like, I'm just trying to get to number one, like, and beat this level, like, but realizing that we can like co-create and I guess beat the level together in a sort of way, and that we're stronger together. Yes, we do have to take our own individual journeys, but also too, like leaning into like our awareness of how we can impact others' lives and how they can impact ours too by co-creating together.
I feel that in a big way. And I don't have the words yet. I'll pick Aaron's brain. He definitely has a depth of awareness on multiplayer games and playing with other people. And I know he has like a card game that he plays that it's like a teammate state. So there's something about, I don't know, there's just something about that community aspect that I just don't have the language for.
So I was thinking of one thing in that for instance, my ex played video games, and I feel like he would be someone to do this just because that's sometimes how he responds to things is or does but sometimes you might have one person who just tries to F it up for everybody else, because it's funny to them, and making it so that person doesn't ruin it, doesn't ruin the game, like, because that's a power dynamic right there too.
Oh yeah.
If you all don't work together, then we all fail, but also too, it like needs to be more like a majority, I guess, kind of thing, rather than
I feel that
all of us, like leave room for other people to be stupid. I don't know. So
I see too the demagnetizing. I do feel like I'm really good at that. And what's there is also what I've created is be the lowest common denominator. So there's almost like a first prize for quote unquote being the worst, and no one then really wants to do it. So it's like kind of childish games of like how to take away the power of a child, because that's typically the behavior that's coming in. So you can mediate that in a way by just simply creating context that like demagnetizes it. And what normal power games and plays no longer work here. That's the same thing of like, please don't use the internet. Like you do better when you're not here. Like you're demagnetizing that stereotype of, oh shit, I haven't been showing up. I've been failing the game.
And my whole thing too is like,
right, because I haven't been showing up here. Yeah, it bothers me when people, say like, oh, the people who are here are the people who, like are showing up and stuff like that. And I'm just like, other people have lives,
yeah,
like they might miss this one,
that's
and that's okay. They're not meant to have that, to see that one. Yeah. So
that was a
thank you.
Melanie and Layer, I think day 3, you'd have
Yeah.
to check, that she was talking about, like, you only make it day 1, then 2, and then like, because you're not in leading yourself. And I'm like, I do get that. There is an aspect of, yes, if I was actually serious, I would show up every day and I would do this intentionally. And I'm just also at the mercy of what I'm navigating, which is already too much for me at this stage. And I'm learning how
Yeah.
to be in that. So this is the stage that I'm at. And so
Yeah.
there's a missing language of caring for the person who's quote unquote failing. I think
Like
that's
it doesn't give grace for even somebody who, what if they had to go to the hospital,
yeah.
Like, where's the grace,
That's where I'm at. And that's where a
Yeah.
lot of my language is. It's accounting for
And love and connection anyway. Yeah.
yeah, accounting for the one that's quote unquote failing, and much of that ADHD system that is keeping us in the undertow because no one's accounting for it. It's like you've got to get in line with the performance of whatever capitalism. I do like the idea
Right.
of colonialism. I don't like using the word patriarchy at all when I think of language, just simply because I do see that like strong male leadership in that patriarchal standpoint is like is helpful for society. Like that's not to take patriarchy away isn't the answer. Like having a bolstered up of the experience of male leadership, female leadership, and the joining of that too.
I
Like
think the thing is that patriarchy is so joined with supremacy at this point, and that is where it's so intertwined.
Mhm.
And
Supremacy might be the right word then.
yeah, and sometimes patriarchy, like can be about dominating, but it's also about it's very interesting, to speak about because like it of course like you're relating it to masculinity to a certain extent and it's not to like vilify masculinity.
That.
Yeah, and yeah, how did patriarchy get that bad name? And I think it's because it was birthed out of supremacy and then the white male, kind of thing.
Yep.
So
So I think that's
yeah,
where it's like compared to, and that's even I think taking responsibility for
there's
language.
room for us all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you say patriarchy and we then blanket it on Western American colonized at that point in time, it was, they were white.
European.
Yeah, European, that, and then call that patriarchy. Like patriarchy fits every single social construct. Like it fits everywhere. And then we've labeled it and flavored it and colored it patriarchy as white male. So that's where supremacy, I feel like, as you say that, is challenging that definition for me.
Yeah, because now it'd be interesting to like really tap into the definition of patriarchy as it is, like without the supremacy intertwined of it, because I think in general it's been used to describe like the supremacy that, for instance, the keeping down of women, like the control of women,
Yes.
like their ownership over women, and things like that.
Which
So,
still does
for
happen
example.
globally. So yeah, it's finding the
Yeah.
distinction. Is there balanced, healthy, quote unquote? I just feel like also in the sense of when you do take patriarchy away, it does create a harmonious, balanced energy where both sides are free, sovereign, liberated
Yeah.
humans co-creating
Somebody
together.
used a word yesterday that I thought was interesting, familyarchy.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of like that because I felt that, that families are actually like, we're moving to circles. Hierarchies are over, like we're moving to circles and intertwining circles. And that
Heterarchy is the
feels good to
term.
me. Huh?
Heterarchy is that term.
Oh, okay.
Heterarchy.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
that's an established term that's in Gene Keys. Hetary. I can't
Okay.
spell it. Either way, heterarchy is
Yeah.
that term where the deconstruction of traditional family systems to where we actually are able to be in an ecosystem. And it just talks about the historical of like this person had a business, your family did that business, like that was there, and we've watched. And I mean to some issue of like Christians calling out, quote unquote, us destroying the family system. Like, yes, we have destroyed the family system, and it was creating these vacuums of one person having to do everything where that whole dynamic just is not sustainable for one person at all and not helpful for kids, like to
Yeah.
not have access to other relations and things. Like it is destructive. So I do like familyarchy in that sense. And it is this in this season, like it's gonna look different just as we deconstruct and rebuild as
Yeah.
humans. Like
We're gonna have lots of different words and definitions for
yeah,
things
it's
as
gonna
we
look different
deconstruct
just
and
because
rebuild.
this like
Yeah.
quote unquote blood is thicker than water. Like it's this blood is destroying the path of us collectively staying on the planet. I think that's something that's been
Mm.
a brain for me. And
Well,
I think
because then it becomes a form of like almost like nationalism,
Yeah.
you know, in that sort of a way.
that
Yeah.
and I see
Well,
too.
when you recognize everyone as a blood brother, you
Yeah.
know, like then that's different, you know.
That feels so
Like,
good too. And I'd rather come
Yeah.
from that place too and find that I can have some weird religious conditioning around that because a brother and sister thing could be super religion-ish for me. And there is this aspect of I would love to come from that frame as it is exhausting to be a female on the internet and just instantly it's like I'm not treated as a brother or sister. I'm treated as a woman and I then get that whatever sexual energy that not from everyone, it's just an undertone that's like all the boundaries are up because you don't see me as a brother or sister. You see me as a potential whatever. It's just it's gross to me.
Objectification.
Yeah, the objectification and just
Yeah.
the editing of myself so much to in some ways masculinize myself on the internet just because I do not want that attention and I just hate having that attention.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the future will hold. That may change and just something I work through and get over. I tend to go that direction just because it's fucking exhausting to just share myself. And then it's like the vortex of inappropriate comments or things just because I posted a photo. Like it's like, okay, I now have the influx of dudes doing whatever. Like it's exhausting. So that whole thing shows up.
Hi.
There's another thing too of the Pollyanna nature, and I think maybe it's a 6-2 thing that like we can see out and see the future and really hope.
Mm.
And I do want to hold, and I found this yesterday really powerful. Aaron's a 5-1, and the gift of those holding the context that the world is on fire and it's gonna die. Like if we aren't aware that that is actually really our fact and we can actually be empowered to do something about it. Like I feel
Yeah.
like sitting on the whatever, sitting under the Bodhi tree, everything is good and fine and everything is great. It's like if we do not evolve, we don't stay here. And I think that's been
Right.
the middle space that I've gotten to. And
Right.
where
We kill ourselves literally.
we
Yeah.
are literally killing ourselves.
We extinct ourselves.
We are consciously aware we are doing this and we're not stopping. It's like stop hitting yourself kind of concept. So for me, I got to the middle and the gift of those that are in spaces that are maybe being that quote unquote oppositional force per perception, when in reality, no, we need that oppositional force. So we all have those perspectives coming together. I kind of just see like a military room of like everyone in the different departments coming together with their different takes and different things and not necessarily idolizing the hold hope and hold the vibration that everything's going to come together and all the love and light. Like no, we need people in the news, in the mess, in the density, in that, and still tethered into whatever this ecosystem is. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think my sister too, where she works for the state, like everyone is in their right position. And are we giving them access to follow their intuition to get to their highest position if it's not okay for them today? Like if where they're at right now is suffering, how do we get them to a space where they can start following that intuition and trusting that like whatever path is the right next step, that they're doing it from themselves, not us pressurizing them to take
Mhm.
steps. And not that I see that per se happening. I just know there's a lot of coaches that are very much like, you need to do this. And then you just abandon yourself because a coach tells you to do this. And that's where I want to avoid that so much.
Right, right. Like certain marketing techniques or something like that. You need to do this, you need to do that. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel right for me.
And
But
that
yeah, well, this is the only way.
ADHD codependency trauma bond based is I am looking for someone to tell me what to do because I don't know. So I'm going to go hire a coach, pay a coach, and they tell me what to do. And then I have to learn the lesson the hard way, round and round again. So I just rather account for that up front and just account for it up front and take away the power of that type of money coaching industry of like you are gonna that self-fixing, self-healing, you doing yourself, like self-responsibility. I think that was kind of the crux core of what I see.
Sometimes I need to hear the wrong thing from other people to know what the right thing is for me to do.
I feel that too. I feel that.
Yeah. So sometimes I do go to other people and I want their feedback or their reflection, you know, their personal, unique reflection. And from there I can be like, yep, nope, that's not right, you know, like, and either go look for other feedback or by then I know within myself that like what was the
That is super, super,
better
super.
path.
I see, and I see that's not even something we even consider. It's almost like if you go talk to someone, you have to take their advice. It's like, no, go find. And I see that from, I think it's
Yeah.
gate 63 is about doubt. And it's like you doubt something and the highest embodiment is truth. So it's like, I'm doubting you so that you stand, not that intentionally, it's just my doubt comes through. And in the result, if you stand more firm in your truth, like, thank God my doubt helped you be more firm to confirm who you are. So that gift of doubt does lead to truth. And I don't think we see that we can choose. Like, we have that distinction. I see that with Melanie and Lear too when I watch her stuff. It's like, oh, there's that distinction to see, oh no, this does not feel good. This does feel good. And I have a distinction.
I do think like people pleasing can play into that a little bit too, like betraying yourself in that sort of way. And also too, like our deeper innate desire to like stay with community and not sever connection. So not rocking the boat as well, in that sort of way can play into that. And that the more we understand, I guess, like, and have awareness of the things that are in play, because like, uh, you know, we probably weren't taught this stuff when we were kids, or to listen to our bodies, or to think about these things in certain ways, or approach things in certain ways. So like we're just discovering that, and so what a gift for, you know, future generations to be able to help to continue building upon that. And
Oh yeah. When I
yeah,
see too, this like rock our boat, like that's what I want to create is a space that we have these variables accounted for. And I've been working with Ian and Jaden on how to get like clearing calls and much of the accounting for the fallout of past community type stuff of like, no, if you have issue, like how does that come forth? How do we deal with this as a group? And how do we do this where we actually have quote unquote chain of command or chain of process? So it's not people just having these experiences and shutting up and never talking about it. Because maybe it's just a matter of you need to clear with yourself. It's not that we need to go to the other person. You just need to clear with yourself. And then how do we clear with yourself so that you're empowered? Or no, there's actually something taking place. This person is actually harming people in ignorant ways. It's not bad or
yeah,
wrong. Help me understand. Oh, I was using this word. This doesn't help. Like, how do we create a universal language? So it's not a matter of nitpicking language. It's just a matter of we all agree this is a more empowering way to say this as a group to account for everyone. Because if this person's here, we want more of them here. And if they feel hurt, more of them are not going to be here. So we shouldn't hurt people just because we don't understand. And there's also going to be, for me, a lot of deconstruction of some of the identity forms that we are creating with current culture too. So it's like there is an elevated universal language that I think we're still creating limited language in our current dichotomy dynamic. It's like, how do we see even beyond that? And like, what's going to work in 10,000 years language wise, not just what we have in our current culture. Like, what is universal language? I think that's what I've really landed on. Like, this works in all space time, and really playing with stripping down language and finding what is simple and easy and true. And even because again, that deconstruction of patriarchy, it's like, is that universal? Does that actually work universally? Or are we just using it because it works as a buzzword to get people's attention in our current society? So it takes a lot of time to actually test that and find out if it is or not, and being open to being told you're wrong. Like, it's not universal.
yeah.
If you need to have the space to be able to speak that it's not true, to be able to clean out and get to universal. My truth plus your truth gets us closer to the truth. That's the math that I tend to land on for navigating that. So I feel that there's so much here that tends to be what I say. So I'm working on a more empowering way to say that, because I tend to say there's so much here and I just like give up. So I'm like, I'm drowning. And then I'm like, no, that's abundance, Jenna. You're here to navigate the too much. Rock our boat. I like that. That rock my boat. I can speak it for myself. I do love to be able to have my system shocked and discover empowering ways to stand up when I struggle. I get really excited. And so, yeah, I don't necessarily have an answer and I don't even know where to start. I don't know if you see anything at this time.
No, I was just digging into the patriarchy definition in my head a little bit, you know, like, okay, so what does that mean? Like men in the center, you know, like men on top. Yeah, just trying to deconstruct that a little bit, you know, like, does it mean hierarchy? You know, like, yeah, what men on top, you know, kind of in a way. So I was just trying to deconstruct that a little bit for myself. So I think that's why patriarchy is used, you know, instead of supremacy, because it's still a very male dominated society. And I was listening to something the other day, and they talk about a lot of the structures of like the workday and stuff like that is made specifically for males. You know,
There's
so
that.
that's what they mean when they say patriarchy. You know, like a lot of the things that we do, the ways we did it, is made specifically for, because it serves males the best.
Yep.
And
And
that's why the word patriarchy is used.
I feel something came through. That's a couple things that come through. I've always sought to have community that is balanced with full spectrum, obviously. B, Joey said something last night that if men in general don't feel like they're going to have success, they'll go elsewhere. And so in the pursuit of having a community where there is a desire of the understanding of the male biological psyche. I don't understand it, obviously, because I don't have it. And it is that ability to, they do and did build a world that works for them. And so how do we create what works so that we come together and co-harmonize? Because I don't think anyone in our world that's, biological male or however we come up universal language wants to see us suffer or struggle. Like that's where it's like,
Yeah.
is this?
I'm
and-
hearing counsels. Counsels
Yeah.
is coming off in my head, so like a male counsel or, but also too, like what I'm thinking is that also they need to see success as happening not just within themselves, but in community or in other people.
Mhm. I heard
needs
representative too of like, and so the council's representative of almost like there's an agreement that it is different and that like both pursuits, desires, they are, I believe, coharmonious, and I believe what we're creating does create that. And I will say in our current reality, there's real, I mean, jails exist for a reason. And so there is that quote unquote warrior protector heart that exists inside of divine masculine male. I so want to find language because I dance in these spaces and I want to speak boldly. Like, how do we account for that in a way that's helpful and doesn't vortex people into the right-wing supremacy because they're just fighting against the rest of the world? It's like, how do you create space for that embodiment? Because there is a journey of protection that we need for this current season. Like there is real danger that still exists out in the world today, and you can become a victim of it when you're not using wisdom. And there is this, I can feel it for myself, not having Aaron around, having Aaron around. I have a very different reality. And so it's like, how do we do that in community compared to like, and how do we see that in community? So I don't know what it is yet. And we still just live in the dichotomy that we live in. How do we account for it in a way that is light and not like we have to live in fear of being murdered because we live? So I don't know what that is. Because that charges the whole, I mean, I just see it in my past marriage too. Like everywhere was a threat and everything was scary and everything was like, it was just exhausting. Everything was going to get us.
Well, I mean, you bringing that, okay, so, okay. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Do you feel like your safety lies within a man in that sort of a way? And only within a male you trust, like it brings up the man versus bear thing that was going on around the internet. How like a lot of times women are just safer without men around in a certain respect, like, and connecting with that, in a certain way. I feel like partially it'll require us to, continue to empower our own safety within ourselves. And basically, the more we weave and interweave with community, the more we can weave trust within people outside of ourselves or outside of ourselves, but without feeling that we need to rely on like one specific person or something like that. And it's a whole getting to know process because we've done this whole nuclear family thing where we pushed everybody into these individual cells basically, and individual office cubbies, like too. I'm not to say that those don't serve, I love my alone time, but they really separated us. So there's a lot of distrust that happens. And of course, like we have a lot of deconditioning to do. We're trying to build a new train, that centers community, while also off of this current one. And I was thinking when you're talking about jail systems and stuff like that, yeah, it might be like defunding them and realizing we need to fund them a little bit more, and then we can defund them some more. And oh, we get to fund them just a little bit more. Okay, then we can fully defund them or something like
Mhm.
that. Like it's gonna be a wave and a dance, and like there's gonna be ups and downs within that.
And the words I've
Um,
always found is the desire to bolster the system until it is obsolete. Those are the languages. That's the language I've used.
mm,
It's bolster the system until obsolete compared to defunding or
yeah,
destructing or taking out. It's like, how can we make this so robust in offering so that this is no longer needed and collectively too? I will say, so I just have my own personal experience, which is obviously not beta tested far. I do know for sure if I had to go out, I would be well and safe and I'd have my own safety. Like I do know that. I do know what I get to relax into when I do not have to think about that. And I don't have that as the being the energetic force to go out into the physical 3D world that is very like I can feel personally like the power that I feel of other people and the dynamic there I can feel very loudly. So the energy I have to sustain to have that masculine force around me when I go out and live life is very real. And I've, just from my own trauma nervous system, that's what I'm coded into. And so it may not be real for everyone. That's what's real for me, at least in what I've been trained into. And so there is a completely different world when I am in partnership. And I don't know if that's, has to be with a actual partner. It could be just in partnership with two people. And I actually would even bring in, as I always can, or always love to, the whole biblical stuff said go out 2 by 2. So I don't know if it's necessarily Aaron masculine form that save the feeling or creates that
what
dynamic.
if it's the masculine within yourself, like the divine masculine? What if you bring your divine masculine in before you go out, and they assure, like your feminine part that you are safe and that I am right here, like
I
as a
feel that.
protector.
I feel that. The thing is, I have to do so much mental work to accomplish
Mm,
this current stage. So yes, I can, and it's not going to stay or last because those patterns are there where when there's someone in physical form, which is that whole like, I don't think we're supposed to heal individually. When there is partnership with people, and
yeah.
even again, I have to come back to what I find just in Bible, they said go out 2 by 2, holding this energy, holding this frequency out in the world. It does take someone else, I believe, because the energy can just be like taken. And so, yes, I can create that force field. I can do that work. It is extreme labor where if I simply am with someone, that labor is not the same amount of labor. And it's huge energetic work. I mean, before I spent
If we create safe communities, then we don't have to
that
worry about that.
that. So I think where I'm speaking is in this
Like,
interim space, what we're creating, what we're seeing, what we're doing, and how it's coming together of the necessary need for it and not necessarily highlighting it. It's just the undertone that I see just and I think for more, it's just the having partnership and co-creation and finding connection and community that is safe, brotherly, sisterly. I mean, ultimately is the ultimate. I just have my own example, so that's where it comes
yeah,
out. And having this quote unquote brother and sister dynamic of you're not alone in this because it is the proclivity to, I mean, it's all subconscious, it's all energetic. So I can just watch my own self completely morph and change based on the experience of being in someone's energy. No matter how much work I do, no matter how much work I do, whatever limbic reaction that takes over my nervous system, there's just something different when someone else is in the room. It's not a one-on-one ego. I even think of like going to the doctor. If I go by myself, this could turn into a whole traumatic event and I have no control over it. Where if I take someone else, I can be like, hey, do you see this person and the accountability that's here? And just watching the pattern of quote unquote 3D getting power taken away. And I won't back down from a fight, so to speak. So there is this pattern. And maybe this is just more of not common and where we're headed. And maybe this is just an embodiment of what I see for me personally, and it's not collectively. Uh, that's just the world I live in with this energy and the limbic fight that I have. And it is exhausting.
yeah,
And I'm able to actually rest in the connection with Aaron. And I didn't have anyone before either. So that's where I see community and connection is needed for the nervous system to react in a way that's
yeah,
like like how to bring the nervous system down does take community. When we heal in community and
yeah.
that is a whole thing.
And normalize like taking breaths or like coming back to oneself. Like I always thought that would be nice, like in terms of like if when or whatever, dating or something like that, because it's such an excitable event, like to just be able to sit with someone and
Yeah.
just be,
Yeah.
you know, and breathe and be with ourselves.
Yep.
You know, and every time we feel ourselves getting more heightened,
Yep.
you know, like, or people pleasing or whatever, you know, like, in that sort of way, to like take that break, to
Yep.
like come back to self.
I agree.
Yeah.
And creating that as what's needed. As for me, when I was at a point of 5 to 10 PTSD attacks a day. And so I could eventually get there when I was in this space. The one that the most extreme traumatic for me that comes through is I had the people who took me in, their community called 911 again 2 months after, and they came and
Wow.
did a welfare check. And the cops showed up thinking I'm manic, not well. And they come in, huge PTSD attack. I can't breathe. And they're threatening to call a crisis responder. So I'm freaking the fuck out because I cannot physically breathe. They're standing over top of me. Do we need to call the ambulance? Like, you guys
Right.
have no fucking clue what you're doing. And so I had to call my ex at the time, and he just was able to get me to function again. And it was like I was completely disabled, dysfunction, and they're getting ready to threaten to take me again. And it was
Yeah.
just like, that's what I'm trying to speak to, is mine's so fucking extreme. I just also see in that extremeness, we can see the play and energy. And the people in the system, especially, you get pulled over or whatever, they don't fucking understand what they're doing. And when
Yeah.
you stand in your power, I
They
mean,
don't
this
have
is just,
training, you know, like in
yeah.
actual just communication. Their training is in domination,
No,
you know?
exactly. And I will
Yeah.
even say this too, like
Control.
this
Domination,
is
control.
to me, this is an experience of why I get passionate about it too, from where my past is. Like, this is what is killing Black people in cops. Like, this is that power differential, and they're terrified. And then this whole thing's happening. And so this is like what's happening. I even was able to say to my ex too, like, the way you stand, like, just move your hips, like it will shift the energy in this space to where it like moves out. Like, you're standing dominating this person and the energy with me. I'm like, the way you're standing is dominating. Just turn your hips a little. It doesn't change how you're able to position yourself
Yeah.
with everyone else. This does not change. Like, yes,
Your
it makes,
shoulders, you
yeah,
know?
just a
Yeah.
little turn changes everything. It does. You can still have the quote unquote guard. There's just that kind of education. And I mean, I manifested all these experiences. I went to another court case thing with a friend, and they literally escalated some dude to the point they were dragging him out of the courthouse. And I was like, you literally did that yourselves. Like, you guys, cops there, did this. And so I
Wow.
believe in due time, with my credibility, once I can communicate it,
This is
I
so
can literally, I would love to speak into energetics of how to just use a different word, use a different body movement. You'll literally de-escalate the situation, because they're taught in de-escalation. And yes, in some ways they are. And also they're not in the like intelligent form. They like just know enough.
There's still this authority thing going on, you know, like there's this concept of peace officers versus like police officers. And like it's a very different concept. You know, peace officers want to try to keep the peace.
Yep.
Police officers want to police your every movement,
Yep.
you know, and limit. And yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
see that distinction. I appreciate that as distinction, as I do see there's people in the system that are quote unquote peace officers trying their fucking best inside of a system that they can't.
I actually think it's actually a talk about like that's what should be, you know,
Mhm.
like, and I think different police officer units and stuff are doing training in different ways to help to bring that more, but most of them aren't, you know, most of them are getting more training on how to fight,
Mhm.
how to, you know, like hurt.
Mhm.
Yeah, how to, yeah,
And
yeah.
I have so many stories, because that's the thing too.
Yeah,
Their
cop
systems are,
cities, you know, you heard about the cop cities, you know, like they're going to train by IDF soldiers on how to, you know,
it's
just,
so scary.
yeah, hurt
It's,
other people
yeah,
basically, you
it's
know.
it's their nervous systems too that are at the mercy too. Because I know I've heard so many stories of just different people getting in the heat of the moment, literally destroying people and beating people in the head. And have a story of my ex who was so excited about shoving someone's, like slamming someone's arm in the door. Like, they love it. They like love to talk
Wow.
about it. And just like they talk about these stories in ways that are fucking destructive and scary, that they fucking love it. And they
Yeah.
can be caught on it because they
This is
know
how
how.
much I can hurt someone. Look at my power,
Yep.
you know.
No,
Yeah.
and they love talking about the stories. Like, it's constant. It's constant the way they talk about stories. So that's something too that like it
Yeah.
can't be caught, because they are only like, that's how they're processing it too. It's not, oh, I did this and like let me clear it as a traumatic experience. It's like, let me get more accolades and respect because I did XYZ. And even when you
Yeah.
experience something that's bad, you can't speak it up. Like, I heard so many stories of
Yeah.
people doing bad stuff that you can't tell anyone.
Yeah, it makes me think of like getting off on it, or like my body's getting excited off this, and I like the excitement that my body gets off this,
Yep.
like, and because I've recognized this, I'm going to continue doing that instead of finding a different outlet for the
Yep.
excitement that I'm wanting or perhaps I'm addicted to within my body.
So
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to speak to from a holistic standpoint of divine masculine embodiment, whatever that warrior type of mentality. Like we do know and need those people and those firm people as like those are people who will be vortexing into our communities. And so like that is the consciousness and psyches that are coming in. And so there is a firm force that needs to exist in operation and in quote unquote conflict with those that
Yeah.
are getting off on harming humans. And so there is a need to be love warrior type of that to match that to clear it and be able to stand up against that force. So I don't know how to put it into language. I just see it personally.
They have to want community more than they want hurt or to be hurt,
I hear that.
like,
And I'm not
yeah,
necessarily at that stage. It's how do we plan for
yeah.
when they do want it? How do we plan for our community to account for people like that? That's all. Just in due time, not something that
I
will
think
lead.
the first thing that we do is just we continue to start to strengthen our own communities, and
Yeah.
like that. I feel like the answers will be found as we continue to like dedicate ourselves and dive in and strengthen our resolves around our experience together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and what we
Yeah,
want to create.
that one's just a personal, I can see
Yeah.
that. And I can, yeah, just more of like once I get it out, I don't have to keep living inside of it. And that's something that's alive for me of
Starhawk has written some really interesting books. I don't know if you've ever followed Starhawk, but she has this whole series, and it's like more about how Northern California and Southern California broke off, and Northern California is more like, yeah, getting back to the natural world. Everybody has a place healing, and then Southern California, Los Angeles, super corrupt, and it talks about like uh, the experiences. There's a series, but I feel like there was more information in regards to that process. But Starhawk is just a really awesome person to
yeah.
follow in general, as far as like not just philosophy, but also like she's permaculture is super her thing too. But yeah, anyway.
I love that. I love what you said. And what I saw when you spoke that too is that programming, when you are detached from nature, your programming is going to be more prone to death destruction from that lens compared to regeneration, which includes
That
death
is
destruction.
interesting.
When you
Yeah.
are in an ecosystem that is part of the earth, death and destruction is part of the ecosystem. It's a cycle wherein I just see like a concrete box cell of, LA, like it's just all concrete, all people inside is concrete. They're not getting to connect with an ecosystem outside of a concrete program death destruction reality. And just that whole hub there and what they produce and create is a whole nother thing. So either way, yeah, I can feel that fully. I feel that fully, and I'm really excited. Either I don't know why I say that all the time. I can work on editing that. Either way, it's just more of I want to get it out so it's on the table. And I also find resources when I speak it out too. Like it's definitely 6'2", so fucking far in the future. And it's something that I do want to like flavor our awareness around, as it is my heart. My heart will
I have
always
a
be.
hummingbird friend coming outside.
Oh,
Just
hi,
wanted to share.
hummingbird. Please, please, please.
I
Hummingbirds.
shared the other time. Yeah. So,
Hummingbirds are very aligned energetically.
yeah.
I will always have a heart to go into the system. So that's where it's like, how do we, okay, say I get into the system and then they're interested. How do we actually serve them when they come in and they're, this whole thing, that psyche is already there. It's just something to plant that seed of where we're at and the big dreams, baby
Well,
stuff.
you made me think like start bringing in plants,
So good. Yeah. I mean, that's right there. Like
things
what
that are
community.
alive,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
that's really good.
to attune to.
I love that you
Yeah.
said that too. There's a hook here that I want to put a plant on, and just that context you just anchored in was like I can start charging that with so much more of like it is all in the quote unquote imagination. And so I can bring inside, outside, outside, inside
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Tuning into like what's alive, like, and growing, like it made me think when you were explaining like or sharing like the stark differences like in a stark way,
Mhm.
like, oh wow, yeah, when you're in nature you're attuned to what's alive and growth, like, and also the changes of season. I feel like it's really important to be attuned to the changing of seasons, and of course the sun, like,
Well,
yeah,
I'm just getting more and
it
more
all
tapped
affects us.
into the 13 cycle thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it is fucking crazy what they have accomplished with changing the calendar. Like
The Roman calendar, yeah.
if you actually look at like and see the pattern of the
And then
moon
the time
cycle,
change,
and that are the moon cycle and our bodies inside of
Yeah.
a rhythmical pattern, like that's what our bodies need. And they just literally like fork in a fucking toaster completely disconnected us from the severing of the planet. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes fucking sense. And I just sat down and I was looking at the time. I was like, fuck, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. You can never actually sync up with the planet if you do not operate inside of the moon cycle. And so it gave me a lot of sobering concept to be able to speak about, because I struggle to bring it in because it feels so woo. And I'm really getting the science around it and just women's cycles. I've been doing that for, I don't know, since 2015, I think is when I started flow living for survival. I was not well. I'd pass out and stuff like that with my period. So I did it for well-being or my own stuff. And I just learned so much. And now I cycle with the moon and I love it. And it's easy, and just being able to tap in and that whole thing. I mean, that's your sacral, that's your intuition. That's like the other thing too, from survival apocalypse. If people are afraid of the end of the world, like get your fucking intuition in check, because that's the thing that's going to survive. Is like, if you're not connected into the world, like I don't know how, if we're barely going to survive, you're really not going to survive if you don't have that connection to intuition. And being able to bring that in is lights me up. And yeah, there's a whole world there too.
Well, it's also too like co-regulating with other people. Like that's what's going to continue to help us to evolve and change. And yeah.
Yeah, that showed up. I don't know if I've shared before. I wanted to create a summit called How Do I Human? And that kind of culture to
cool.
like show up to a call to figure out how to human with other humans, like try on community, and like having it from that context of like, this is play discovery of how to function with other humans, which I barely know how to do half the time.
Yeah.
So there's something there that showed up. Okay, I feel like that captures a lot. I don't necessarily have clarity, and that's okay. It keeps getting clear. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I might send this recording to Joey and see if he wants to listen to it and see what he can pluck from this. We had a good long conversation last night, and he has a good amount of experience like leading groups and was definitely programmed Mormon. So he has that community aspect of the gifts that they have and whatever, however you see that. Anything else shows up for you? I feel pretty solid.
Not right now. Yeah.
Thank you for your fullness and the way you show up and all that you've done to get us here, and
Yeah, you too.
keep doing every day. And yeah. How old are your kids again?
Just turned 6, and then 3.5. He'll turn 4.
Okay, fun.
Yeah.
7 and 4, almost 8. I can't remember the birthdays, but either way, kind of in that ballpark.
Oh, cool. Aaron's kids, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get them next weekend.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited for the unfolding. It feels still too big. I'm gonna play with that.
Yeah, keep me posted. Like, is there any way that you could make like a when you do reports, you have like a little layout that you put in. I forget what the name of it's called, like where you have just dots of like the things that you want to address within the report. And so just making a layout of the things that you do want to address, or even things that you have questions around, in regards. And then we could meet that a little bit more. In that way. Yeah.
I love that. Love that. I love that so much. It is this weird, like not knowing how to function, because it's like, yes, that makes sense. Like, I don't know if it's just the generator land and where
well, because we can figure out how to build, from there. Right now we're just talking.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to play with that. And I don't, so there's something here too that I see over and over. I don't know if it's just my brain,
bullet points and stuff.
ADHD, sacral generator concept. It's like when you said that, all of a sudden my whole system was like, oh yeah, I could do that. Like there's this energy of like, that makes sense, where I couldn't have generated that as a concept before, but now I'm in response. So there's like this energy that we have created, like I'm in response to what you're saying. And so there's something here that I see over and over as a pattern where I can feel disabled and dysfunctional. Like, Jenna, why couldn't you come up with that? Except the energy I'm in the creation of this is like so much more co-creative and exciting compared to like, hey, Christina, here's this report I have. Like, I don't know, it just feels so much more co-creative in this way. So I'm in discovery of what the mechanics of this is. And whatever you just said, like anything you see too, like I'm super strong background in executive, like, what's it called? Corporate corporate coaching is what I want to say. Either way, it was like executive assistants. Like I was an executive assistant for a long time. So like I have a really strong business background. It just doesn't come forth half the time until someone like brings it forth. So I would love to create some sort of report or something that we can, like an agenda thing that we can start tackling and moving dots around and have something to
Yeah,
put.
because I feel like that's the foundation of creating, like, of course, the foundation first is talking, like that's like the ground soil and stuff like that. But like actually building the foundation and how it would build out requires us to write things down.
Okay, cool. I will play with that. I feel like I got to pull out a lot from this conversation. I'll take some more notes and then build that out and tackle that on. I know Joey and I are continuing and planning to do like a Change the World Wednesday kind of conversation podcast style.
Oh,
So
cool.
I don't exactly know if we've landed on the time. If you're around, we're just gonna have it like open invite every week on Wednesday for people to come in and join the conversation of quote unquote change the world with us invitation.
Fun.
So we don't have an answer. If that speaks to you, if you have a vote for time wise that does work in your schedule on Wednesdays, we'd love to have that at a time that worked.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for me, just mornings work better just because my youngest is just in half day camps and half day schools.
Okay. What's
But
the latest, earliest?
It's like 9 a.m. to 12:30.
Okay. Is 11
p.m.
too late?
No.
Okay, let's play with around there because I think we might do a long chunk. So we might do like
Yeah.
a start at 11, and then
Yeah.
I think we might go like a 2 to 3 hour window of like then work
Yeah.
with us or do some project with us. So there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stuff we're seeing of like a whole like almost like all Wednesday you can hop in and hang out with us kind of thing. So that's what shows
Yeah.
up for me. You got that on time.
Cool.
Really good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're amazing. I look forward to what's next and just appreciate you leaning
Awesome.
in and all the things. Have the
Thanks,
best day.
Jenna.
Enjoy your
Thanks
week.
for inviting me into the
Yes,
conversation.
always. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.